Hello, I'm Dave.
I'm Brent.
And here we are in the regular room, although this time at night, because we are having a little chat among ourselves because Brent is actually here today.
Yeah, that's right.
He isn't usually.
Yeah, we shot this right after we shot the Ocarina of Time Confrontation and ending footage.
Yeah, which we did over the space of about 2 days.
Supposed to be one day.
Supposed to be one day.
Two.
Turned out to be basically today and a bit of the day it was supposed to be yesterday.
Right.
And
the day before was completely about it. We just didn't shoot much. Anyway, long story. Long story.
But anyway, so now we're basically going to talk through how this happened.
Yeah.
What on earth we thought we were doing and why.
How long it took.
Who we think we are.
Who I think he is.
The sort of the genesis of the whole thing and basically hoping to clarify any questions you may have in a slightly slurred last thing at night sort of way.
But maybe you'll learn something you didn't know, or maybe you'll understand why we made certain choices we did, or if nothing else, get a little sneak peek into how our weird brains work.
Yes.
Maybe I'll start with this.
Yeah.
My friend Madeline, who goes by Mad in the Moon.
She's good.
She is. She's good. She doesn't upload enough. But maybe by the time this video comes out, she will be.
She doesn't upload enough, Brent. You're right.
Yeah. Get on that. That's sort of a compliment, but backhanded, I know. But the point is, she's a dear friend of mine, and she's wanted me to do an Ocarina of Time, and she let me borrow her 64 because mine was busted. That's how much she wanted me to do an Ocarina of Time with lyrics. And
how long ago was this?
She probably gave me, I went down to see her in 2010.
Oh my god.
She gave me her 64 in 2010. So, that said, she followed up with me around 2012-ish, going, hey, you gonna get around to that thing? I mean, I gave you my 64. And I said, okay, you should start uploading videos again. Once you've uploaded 3 new videos, I'll start work on Ocarina of Time. So...
And ever since, there's been a passive-aggressive war of...
In 2013, maybe... I don't think it was 12. God, maybe it was... Every year is like an unlikely sequel to a franchise that you go, they're making that one? They're making 2015? Get out of here. So anyway, so I started playing Ocarina of Time. And, again, to be fair, Ocarina of Time, when I first played it about a year after it came out, I played through the first 30 minutes and went, God. And again, it's the same thing as Mario Land, and it's similar to Mario Sunshine. I went, this is not my Zelda. This looks bad. This is clunky and weird. I don't like it. It doesn't feel like Zelda. Screw this. And I probably didn't even get to the part where you get your sword, honestly. But it didn't seem fun. And I wasn't impressed with, oh, it's so 3D. Like, I don't, for some reason, 3D offended me more when it first came out until Mario 64, which I actually played later than that. Different story. The point is, because I didn't have a 64, so I tried it. And maybe it was because other kids had the 64, and so I didn't want to enjoy it because it was like,
well, yeah, but also, Mario 64 was the only good 3D game. Like, that's not quite true, but it's nearly true. There were so many bad ones.
But yeah, there were so many.
Well, that was later.
That's true. Oh, you mean early on in the 64?
Yeah, like when you were saying that like you kind of didn't like 3D when it was first coming out, that's because on the whole it was terrible.
Right.
And it was like those if you were excited about the technology then it was, oh cool, this, and it'll be better soon.
Like how you refer in your Sonic 2 song to the learning phase.
Yes. Like the gaming market's adolescent phase.
They had to learn how to do 3D and not, like how to keep the franchise and sort of adapt it to a new dimension. Yeah. But I'm getting off track. So anyway. The thing is that I didn't care for the 30 minutes of Ocarina I played probably in 1998 or 9. It was just too different for me. And I loved Link to the Past and loved the original and actually loved Zelda too. So, that said, I'm now 27 or 28 playing Ocarina. And unlike a kid who would have gone, wow, these are such great graphics for Zelda, I'm sitting here on an HD TV, which doesn't help them blend, you know, going, God, this looks like
shut up!
Ugh, this game takes forever. Can't I just open a chest without a symphony? Like, you know, like, do it, dude. You know, like, and everything about it annoyed me. And I honestly got between 10 and 14 hours, however long it takes you to get to the Temple of Fire. It's Fire Temple, right? And I was despairing because I was honestly not enjoying the game, even though knowing full well it's a classic. It's the best. Number one. Here's the medal, here's the trophy, here's the Nobel Prize. Like,
all these sequels don't live up to it.
right. And me sitting here going, Jesus, give me Link to the Past any day. So that was my real life feeling, even though I know that it has a place in people's hearts. And I don't disrespect that. I don't really think they're wrong. Being 28 when you've seen the PlayStation 3 and you know that the PC is capable of things like what the PlayStation 4 will become, just, you know, and the way that CG movies are not a big deal nowadays, to go back and play something that looks one step above like race driving, or like there's, you know, old very super polygon, you know, polygonal games, it doesn't look much less clunky than that to me now. And it all feels too slow. It feels like everything is too complicated because I've seen it done better in the time since, and I wasn't in the right place to appreciate it then, so I'm just kind of in between two different things, right? So I still, because of that agreement with Madeline, went, I need to do something with this. And I wrote a few pages of notes, a couple dirty things like, oh, haha, the Deku tree, come into my mouth, Link, ha ha ha, like, you know, I've got wood, ha ha ha, like, but nothing clever really that would lead to a good with lyrics. I really just wasn't enjoying it. Now that brings me to, when, I wonder, did I actually, was it the beginning of 13, early 13? I think I contacted you about it not super long before Alcon 2013. Probably early summer or maybe late spring. Because we only had so much time.
That's right, and because I don't want to say that the Confrontation's the first thing we came up with, but it's close, isn't it?
It's the first really solid piece of material.
It's the first thing that basically survives now.
Right, for sure. I contacted Dave and said, hey, the Mario Land video is one of the best things I've ever been a part of. Let's do another. And I'm paraphrasing and shortening here, but it was like, but let's not do a Mario Land. I've been working on an Ocarina video.
Because I was expecting Mario Land 2. I was sort of thinking, yeah, dun 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 dun. That's going to be it.
Right. At some point, whether or not this is my original intention in contacting you, I think I realized I actually didn't like Ocarina. And that it would be easier to do a game that I actually didn't like, that you actually had some fondness for, instead of one of us trashing a game we both loved.
Yeah. And we talked about that before, like we had little tiny conversations about how you didn't get on with it, and I was like, yeah, but it defined, and like it really, and it opened up and you know.
Yeah, so we'd actually already probably given, like set down the seeds of what would become our fictitious 8-minute song, if it is 8 minutes to you.
I think it's going to be longer.
14-hour extravaganza.
We don't quite know, even though it's all kind of done now. We haven't stapled it together into the final version.
Right.
It's going to be quite long.
Yeah.
You may already know this if you've already seen the relevant videos, but around about that time, I just happened to see Brent saying, oh, I'm going to be at Alcon in Leicester. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I live there. So, because I grew up in Leicestershire, and we'd always sort of said, like, if we ever happen to coincide, we'll do Mario Land live.
Right.
Oh, and I was gonna be there anyway that weekend because my friend was getting married.
Right. So it was a kind of multi-coincidence.
Yeah, so I was already booked to be there in that town, in that area, and then there was this show on.
It's lucky because if that wedding had not been in Leicester, who knows if you would have been able to make it back up to Leicester.
Yeah, it was perfect. So I was like, hi, I'm going to be in the area that weekend, so if you want to sing Mario Land, we can do that. And he was like, I was hoping that.
Yeah, so that suddenly morphed into, hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
We can record, in our sequel to Mario Land video, we can capture on film each other in the same physical space as a way to up the ante and upgrade from the Mario Land video.
Yeah.
So then suddenly we had barely enough time to figure out the part of the video that we would shoot together, and we decided it would be somewhat like the climactic, dramatic moment. And I think that I sort of had like a technical assist. Like I kind of like kicked the ball toward you, and then you like headbutted it into the goal with the confrontation.
We were having a conversation on Skype, and we got to this idea of like, what if it's this major argument? What if it's come to a head and it's built up and it's built up? And there was, I mean, it was almost simultaneous. And we went, confrontation!
Right. And I think that like, now I'm trying to take some credit here because most of the credit for confrontation goes to Dave. So I think, here's how I remember it. Or rather, here's how I choose to remember it.
Okay.
I think that we somehow, between the two of us, the notion of confrontation, referencing the song Confrontation from the musical Les Miserables, came up as a way we could kind of, maybe a formula we could emulate for our confrontation scene. And I think I just mentioned Gerudo Valley being part of that. And that was just, I think, what like put the ball at the top of the thing and started it spinning for you.
That was it, yeah. Brent came up with that. And, well, it wasn't just Gerudo Valley. He was like, he was telling me, like, I've got this idea of that, but turned into this kind of slightly Wild West themed, you know, the fingers waggling over the holsters type music. And with a dark sort of dun 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 like that. And I can't remember if you said that before or after we'd gone confrontation, but it just made me think that like that do-do-do-do could be fitted into that so well.
Right.
And so then, we're sort of almost to Brent's annoyance.
If you tell him what happened, then I'll tell you how I felt. Go ahead.
I think we agreed to like go away and think about it.
Yeah.
And with more of the focus on like, I'll come up with something next because you come up with this Gerudo Valley idea.
Yeah,
and maybe I'll think of the next thing. What we meant by that was the next like tiny nugget of information.
Yeah.
I went and had a shower then, after that phone call, Skype call. And I came back having written it.
Now, do they know you have magical shower powers? 'Cause until visiting you for multiple days, I didn't fully respect the wizardry that occurs only when you are apparently nude and under a shower head. Because seriously, the things that happen to you in showers, in your mind.
I know. What it they'll be trying to picture what has happened this weekend now.
Oh yeah, it was great. Wouldn't trade it. Okay, so
no, it's just that's the only time I stop blithering on and think. Like, that's when I stopped looking at screens and like whatever, playing games. So, for example, if any of you have seen my Christmas medley, the big one, the 16-minute long one, the Wiggle He 2 Christmas medley, that was entirely the product of showers over the course of 2 years, in which I would be like, oh, that Christmas thing I'm going to do, like, yeah, where's the man who'll lead us all through the Christmas wars? Yeah, I'll try and remember that. And then gradually these things would build up, so like to the point where I'd eventually would have written and quite intricately arranged a 16-minute long thing in my head, in the shower. Not at once, not in any genius way, but by adding a tiny bit every day until I know the whole thing.
So with that in mind, we leave this conversation where I guess maybe I still had a sense that I was in the lead and that I was the prime idea haver because it was my channel and with lyrics. And to be fair, those thoughts were very Brent-centric. But then...
Well then, yeah, I came back from the shower and I think I even sent you like a DM on Twitter which was like, hold on right there, I've got something.
Yeah, and of course I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And I probably went, okay.
Yeah.
You know, like...
And I sat down and I essentially typed out the whole, like, made an arrangement, composed everything.
And wrote all the lyrics for...
Yeah, everything from the opening of the confrontation, where we first see each other eye to eye.
Yeah.
All the way up to All Others to This Day. Oh, what's your line doing that?
It was right before the part with If You Won't Disavow.
Listen to Your Heart.
Yeah.
That bit wasn't in it. Yeah. If You Won't Disavow, Listen to Your Heart. That was not there yet. So mine just stopped with like a big call.
It's right before we grab each other's collars. And he just sends me And to be fair, it's a first draft. A lot of it's changed now, but he sends me...
Not much, but some of it's changed now.
Musically, it's almost identical.
Yeah, it is. I haven't changed
Lyrically,
at all.
Yeah, I re-lyricked my part, but the point is
that's right, yeah.
that piece of musical material, to your point, it was like dropping a leg of lamb on my desk. And I listened to it with the strangest combination of glee at this amazing thing and being like, so the coolest
Shut up!
thing about, are you gonna bleep that? About this song, in all likelihood, will be a thing that Dave just went into the shower and gave birth to in a day or two. Cool. Like, you know, and the thing is that really just reflects the fact that, you know, I want to be the creator of all good things, and
of course, what he didn't realise at this point was that would be like that much of that.
right. In my mind, this was.
It felt like the longest bit.
Yeah, it felt like this was going to be the most stretched out and belabored part of the song. And the thing is, now we had a bit that we could shoot at Alcon, where we were going to be in person, and at the time. You know, we'd sort of beated out, B-E-A-T-E-D, like creating the beats for the whole song plot-wise. And then, maybe beaten, I don't know. We created the beats for the whole song, but we hadn't written the whole thing. We just knew the basic thread of it, and we knew that it would end at the time, which you may already know, with this kind of grinchy, like his heart grew 16 times that day or whatever, and I'd look out the window, and then whatever I saw out the window, I would shoot back in New York City when we had more time. So in about 2 hours, we shot the original Confrontation. And was this all getting to a point about our feelings about Ocarina? Or did we just get off into how we did it?
I don't know.
Me neither. Alright, we took a quick break, but we were talking about...
Yeah.
you were going to talk
Ocarina.
about your real experience with Ocarina, and you were going to give me a teacake, if I remember correctly.
That's right, I was, and I've got them just here.
Oh, good.
I got them ready, especially.
You may have noticed, I talk more, oh god. It landed in the Kleenex.
It went in the tissues.
I talk a little bit more British English, or rather I speak with a little bit more British English when I'm over here, and I kind of enjoy it, but I say more shall I's, and I ask questions with a bit of this, instead of the American like, hey, what time is it? It's like, hey,
Your bum.
Could you tell me what time it is?
Right, so my opinions on Ocarina of Time, my actual real true opinions are really simple. I just thought it was very good. I was a teenager and an older teenager, I was past 15 anyway, when Ocarina came out. So I was therefore able to fully anticipate it and read about it. What?
I'm just thinking about when you spilled the tea cakes. Sorry, I'm sorry. I just looked at them and thought about how you're being so serious now. Whoa! It's something whoa! I can't lift it. Oh, it's so unwieldy. Sorry.
So I was able to anticipate it coming out and read the news about it, because I was online by that time, and so it was like, there were no surprises, as it were. But when it came out, I'd been waiting, and it was the opposite as with Mario Sunshine, waiting, and yes, it is what I wanted. It's what I had expected and what I was looking forward to. And I think what it was that Mario 64. Well, that's not a very good comparison, because I was actually really excited about that as well, and I really loved it. But that thing about the complaints that I later had about how it didn't mesh with what the previous Mario games had been, well, this to me did mesh with what Zelda was, but only bigger and grander and 3D. And looking back, I'm changing that opinion now that we have Link Between Worlds to show that no, you can do a modernized 3D without it not being the same kind of game.
Yeah.
But at the time it felt like the Zelda experience, and you put on a VR headset and now you're Link. It was like that. It was polished, yeah, it looked grungy and so on, but
the thing is, actually, it didn't, like, really, I mean, if you looked at it with optimism and wow, it's in 3D, it looked better. You can say it looked grungy, but at the time I don't think we saw that as grungy because it was better than it had ever looked for most people, just not me.
Well, but also games. Like, the scale of it. The fact that, we look at it now and that feels just, there's nothing in it. But at the time, having a space that big in a game, I don't think it had happened before. And so to be able to go from one end of it to the other and the things to be there that you could see in the distance, like, even if it was just the giant castle, to get to that castle and be like, yeah, it's still here. They didn't load a new picture of it.
Right.
It's actually the one. That sort of scale, and then to be able to go to these different areas off that, it was mesmerizing. And the fact as well that within that world, you weren't just exploring, you had been introduced to it via this winding story of like, first we're in this village, and now we're going into this tree, and now we're out here, and here's the horse. And that progression was not perfect, but it was new, and it was exciting, and so it carried us along. And like, no, you're right, it didn't look so grungy then, but we were able to see it. It was the best there was. So after a while, you did still start to react to it like, oh God, do I have to see this builder again with his face? Do I have to look at these walls again?
Or the guys, you will have seen the clip that I will have edited in the video, but those Kakariko village guys who just run like, oh, we'll run it around, and you're like, you know, you could have just had them standing. Like, you didn't have to have them doing this weird, this weird dance jog. I'd like to take this moment to say that while I don't like the game, per se, the thing that I exaggerated in the video is that I cut out the part of my real self that knows it has merits even if I don't like it. In real life, I know that if you have certain taste, if you were born at a certain time, or if it hit you at a certain time when you were ready to accept it, somehow your orbits lined up with this game, that it is in fact amazing, because I can't just assume that many people are dead wrong. I really just focused on my dislike and got rid of the fact that I know it has merits despite that. And so, in contrast to that, I think that you really just slightly exaggerated how you already felt.
Yes, and because I have criticised this game before, and like essentially my opinion as it stands right now is that Zelda 64, which I still call Zelda 64, it turns out, Ocarina of Time was like, at the time, was mesmerising and wonderful and great, and isn't anymore. Unless you do that thing that we do when, you know that thing where you go, today I'm going to watch Star Wars like I've never seen it before. You know that thing? Have you ever done that? Where you switch your head into like, what if I'd never seen this thing I'm familiar with?
Yeah, you pretend that it's brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever done that? And
yeah.
And if you get into that headspace, which I can do with Ocarina, and go like, oh yeah, I remember, or like, oh, I imagine what it must have been like to, even though I was one of them, imagine what it must have been like for people to see this for the first time. You have to do that to enjoy Ocarina of Time the way we did back then, unless you get the 3DS version.
Which I refused to do.
Yes.
Because I wanted the original experience.
Exactly. So, and I think at some point I urged you to play that, not when we were doing this, but maybe a year or two ago when you were like, I first found out that he hadn't played the game, and he tweeted it or something like, oh, well, I've never played Ocarina of Time, so, and I was like, hang on. So it did happen, I'd forgotten this.
Yeah, this sort of...
Yeah, it actually happened. And I was like, no, hang on, okay. May I recommend, with a tense smile, may I recommend the 3DS version? It looks really good, and the graphical problems that the original had, and so it kind of happened.
The thing is, I probably would have appreciated the 3DS version more, but honestly, when I bought a GameCube just to play Luigi's Mansion and Mario Sunshine, because I wanted to feel the original controller. I wanted, and that's, even though that's limiting, it's like, what if I have a joke to make about the C button or whatever? What if I have a joke to make that pertains not to the version you can play on your Wii, but the version on the GameCube and those graphics and like that experience. So I try to make it.
You don't want the guy who's inevitably going to comment like, "Well, actually, they changed that for the Wii version, so I know you didn't play the real one, and so."
I hate to say it, but there's a little part of me that lives in fear of those comments, because when you get comments that let you know you're basically wrong about what you think about a game, then it sort of taints your image of that video, and you go, that video has a small dent in it forever. At least maybe not you, but for me, when somebody points out an error in how I put it, and an inextricable error, it's like a dent. So I just go, forget that. I'm not going to play the remake and make a joke about a thing that wasn't in the original. I'm going to play the original so that everything I'm doing is authentic to the original. Yeah, so I think that's part of why I didn't like it, but my opinion is it still stands based on the fact that I did play the original, and I didn't like the original back then. Were you still working through your real feelings?
No, I think those are my real feelings. I think essentially I loved it then. I don't love it then now. Now I love the 3DS version.
Right.
And I do love that. I think that's lovely.
The original concept, to break it way down, was Dave was, while annoying me, Dave's character, while annoying my character, was the voice of reason. And that his ultimate moral of the story thing was going to be that, yes, it has problems, but the love beats the logic. The love of fans beats out the logical, rational, is it perfect or not? And that's why it's great, because the love so outweighs the logic. And in the end, my Grinchy heart grows 16 sizes. If you think about it, that almost portrays the idea, or portrays my fear of actually sticking a flag in, hey, boom, I hate this game. Almost like I see the error of my ways over the course of the video. And then when we started to rewrite it, also frankly, pretty soon before Alcon 2014, when we started to make drastic changes, I mean, we dawdled and we added little drips and drops.
For the timeline, this is where we've been to Alcon 2013, we've filmed the confrontation that we had, and we thought that was going to be the one. That was set in stone forever, because we were never going to get a chance to do that for like a year.
A whole year. And so, like, when I say hemmed and hawed, I don't mean that we were lazy, I just mean we slowly, it's very hard to write what you think the end of a video is.
That's it.
First,
yeah.
And then make everything seamlessly lead up to that.
Yeah.
So I think it was really only in a few months before Alcon 2014 that after a lot of preliminary, how does it start, where does it go after that, we realized that it was basically not about Dave being right all along. It really became about how you can have arguments about things that you have different opinions of on the internet, particularly nerdy things where one's a fanboy and the other just doesn't quite get it, and the kind of aggression that can come out of that. Even maybe extrapolating to bigger things like how people fight on the internet, even if it's a comment and, ooh, he said that, and ooh, I'm going to tell you this, and how it becomes an over-exaggerated, irrational thing that has no relation to how you would argue or have any discourse in real life. Yeah. That occurred to us pretty late in the game. And I think one of the last major changes was the picture thing. Like, that's one thing I'll claim, only because I'm so jealous that he came up with the confrontation music. I'll just shout from the rooftops. The picture part, which everybody out there is going, oh, the lamest part, the part we all make comments about. No, but like, the idea of the pictures, because it was a really hard thing for us to not belabor in a corny after-school special way. Yeah. And I got so frustrated trying to figure out how we would reconcile. And the idea of the images was like, or the two drawings we've made is like just a visual representation of what we say later, which is that we both like this thing. Yeah. We both like Zelda. But we like it in different ways, and the fact that we have different angles on Zelda doesn't mean we can't work together and agree and be friends. And so that was probably the last major piece of writing.
I think so.
Or piece of conceptual stuff, which ended up bookending the whole thing in a way.
Yeah, you say that it was not long before Alcon, and it was, and I remember why now. It was because basically we'd both just been busy with other stuff, right? We kept, and now and then we'd email each other and be like, hey, let's do that Ocarina song, like, oh, well, no, not let's do it as if it wasn't on the cards, but like, time to do that thing.
Exactly.
And then we would drift away from that email string thread, and because we were busy with other stuff.
Right.
So anyway, it's coming up to Alcon, and we thought we were doing it live at Alcon.
Right, for a while there, that was our plan.
Yeah, we thought that it was going to come out like what, the Tuesday before Alcon or something like that.
Oh yeah, so through the early summer of 2014, we were still planning on presenting the finished product as a preview.
Yeah.
Or a just came out kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like sometime around Alcon.
Kind of simultaneous launch, but give or take a couple of weeks.
Right.
And but I hadn't started yet because we hadn't finished writing it. We hadn't even completely composed the medley yet.
Right, and the ending was this big question mark.
Yeah. See, the original ending was going to be, as you said before, that we look out of this window. At the moment where we have the fists up in the air and we're holding each other's shirt, we look out the window. There are people out there, like, just people.
I think the idea was that it was like going to be a circle of 4 or 5 people with 3DSs, all of them with little Link hats, all playing Zelda 3DS.
Yeah.
Repeating a thing you would have sung before about how the love beats the logic, and that's why it's great.
To the tune of the village theme.
Right. And in a way, that was going to be the Davu Dores kind of, Whoville song from the Grinch, and my heart was going to grow 16 sizes. You close up like the show House. You close up to the inside of my heart, and it actually gains 16 heart pieces, like in a row, just like you get it. Anyway, so that, and then we would crossfade to an epilogue denouement where we're back in the places we normally live, and we've made up. But I guess I always dreaded shooting that, and I think maybe deep down it's because first off, finding the people to do that, because I was going to have to find people.
We didn't know who this would be.
Yeah, I'd have to find people in New York City to pretend to be out a window that was in the UK.
Yeah.
But moreover, there was something that just, sometimes as an artist, just small sidebar, if you're really not looking forward to a part of an artistic thing you have to do, there could be different reasons for it, but sometimes it's because a part of you doesn't buy it yet, doesn't know if that's really of a piece with the rest of it.
That's exactly it. And it was kind of a weight around the necks, wasn't it? It was this thing that we'd agreed to do it, but like in a kind of, we'll do that later.
Right,
sort of way.
And I had assigned Dave this section that never got written of Kakariko Village. I think the idea was going to be a doo-wop thing, like doo-doo, 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 boom, 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 boo-doo-doo-doo, like where a love song almost to the game. And then about how it was going to be like, the love beats the logic, that's why it's great. Excuse my voice, I lost it at Alcon this year. Which
this conversation comes at the end of a long weekend of performances and yelling.
Yelling over a loud bar of people at a convention.
Yeah.
So but that was going to be how it sounded. And then the idea was that these Zelda fans, in earnest, almost these symbols of innocence and love, reprise that theme from earlier, and so I finally realized the point. That was the original ending, and it just, neither of us really made moves to clearly write it out. We have a Google document that was called the Ocarina of Rhyme. That's probably...
I love that.
Yeah.
He just called it that without telling me. I was just like, yes.
Yeah, the Ocarina, see? Yeah. But went through so many changes. It originally had all that stuff. A lot of it's in the very bottom of the document, which we call the graveyard, which is all the old drafts and things. But we just never got around to that, even though you were cooking on the first part. You were really making huge strides in the beginning of the song and all this stuff. But you never touched that one part, and I never touched making the ending actually written out.
I don't think either of us ever quite got it.
No.
Had this, it was such a vague sense of what it would be, but it was so important. It was just nice that what you eventually came up with was not just a thing, but an actual sort of visual representation of the argument.
Which I don't think you fully understood spatially till
No.
the day we drew it, which
No.
was yesterday.
I didn't get it.
And I'm glad you trusted me because
You obviously knew what it was and had this idea, and it was like, well, when he's here, I'll get him to show me. you
yeah,
know? And that's what
I so appreciate that trust because because I didn't know how little you were clear on that until I got here and went,
It's not that I was absolutely without an idea. It was
Sure.
that, if I may say this, I think you'd thought about it without an illustrator's head on. As in the idea worked, but can it be drawn?
I did that a lot with Brental Floss the comic. I'm not really a graphic designer, an artist, an illustrator. So a lot of times you can have a thought that seems right, but you don't know how it would practically be carried out.
Yeah.
Dave's an artist and a cartoonist and knows much more about that. So,
But it turned out, well, it's more that it's not so much that I would know more about that, it's that I would approach it from a different angle. And as it turned out, you were completely right, it did work. And it worked exactly the way you said. And I just wasn't sure exactly what that was.
yeah, of course.
Because Brent was like, are you going to be able to draw these and like while you're in transit, while you were travelling to the UK?
Right.
And I was like, yes, I can. And then I just didn't have time to do it. And the more I thought about it, I was like, am I putting it off like we did with the ending because I can't?
Ooh.
Or what? And I wasn't quite sure. And then actually, as it happens, I think what I would have drawn would have been what you're asking for in the first place.
That said, though, what if I think that you, in the end, had the right idea to wait, because what if you'd spent a lot of time making the perfect, in your mind, versions of what I wanted, but I show up and realize I haven't been clear and it's all wrong.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have the nerve to tell you, Dave, I'm sorry you spent a day on this, but it looks all wrong, it needs to be like this. So it was better for us to wait.
So it's nearly Alcon. We're trying to record this thing by Alcon. It's a few months beforehand.
Early September.
Yeah. And at that point, that's when we suddenly start to realise, so hold on, we're making a wider point now. And that changes some of the stuff we already came up with.
Yeah.
There was a few weeks before Alcon, we were on Skype. And I remember you literally with your head in your hands, just going, not in like a despairing way, but like in a, what do we do here way?
Yeah.
And what you were thinking was, now that we've come up with all these changes, what hoops do I have to jump through to shoehorn in the Alcon footage that we've already shot?
Right, because we had at this point shot footage that existed in the context of a convention in the UK as the confrontation for an unrelated video, unrelated to the convention. So yeah, I was wondering how the hell we justify me going, right, I'm going to the UK to kick your ass.
Because the reason that we filmed it there was we thought, like, the only time we would meet.
Right.
In real life.
There was no concept of me following you to your home and invading it with a camera and lighting equipment. It was about, well, we're gonna be in this one place for this short time and we must shoot it there. I think together or separately asked around to convention staff, is there a room on this college campus where it's held? Is there a room where we could just shoot a thing? We were just concerned about getting any four walls to shoot inside of. But then
I was thinking an empty room. I thought that there would be just an abandoned room.
Right.
In the end, they didn't have that. They had the game room.
Right.
They were going to have tournaments in.
Right. And so we shot it there in earnest, and then it just occurred to us, like, it makes no sense, like, for us to... It didn't seem like a motivated story choice for me to go, right, well, I'm going to meet you at the place that either we're going to be...
we're booked to be at.
Right. Or I'm going to arbitrarily meet you on the battleground of a convention in the UK instead of... And then we realized that if I was coming back again soon anyway, and people know your apartment, they know this as sort of a set of your videos. I don't remember whose idea it was, but again, one of those simultaneous light bulb moments.
It was. I think we both realised, but we both thought, well, it can't happen because that's not where you'll be.
Right.
And we were like this, and then there was this moment of like, you're gonna have to come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does have to be here because that is funny.
And I think you sold me on the inherent humor of me to prove a point. about a video game I hate coming to your home and kicking down the door like, God damn it, I'm here and I'm going to kick your ass, as a metaphor for how exaggerated and out of hand these arguments can get. And I think it's fair to say that we might have said it out of order. I think that maybe in deciding to shoot the confrontation here, that helped cement the theme of these arguments get out of hand.
I think so.
And don't actually resemble real life discourse.
I think so.
And it's almost like when it became real life discourse, we couldn't sustain it because we realized, oh, well, we're not that mad. We're both fans of this thing. Why are we so upset?
Yeah.
I think that was a real help in a way because it makes this organic thing of like, I'm so mad, I'm going to get on a plane.
I don't know why it never occurred to us before, but it never occurred to us that Brent could be in this room.
I think it's probably because while I knew you better after Mario Land, I didn't know you in person. I met you, and I don't know about you, but like I don't know, when you meet somebody who you've only known on the internet and you sort of have an admiration for their work, like I wasn't starstruck, but when I met you at Alcon, it was like an adjustment period to you being in 3D suddenly, which I was much better at than I was with Ocarina of Time. So anyway, it was like lots of, getting to know each other as people in real time.
And we had to get to know each other quickly because one of the shots that we had to do.
Yeah, like, we'll show you, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You'll see in the original Alcon footage, we had to get like this close.
Yeah, like we can't even do it now, but whatever we do, it won't be close enough.
I'd done that once with Doug Walker in a video of his, but he wasn't looking at me. And it somehow felt like, even though I was breathing on his skin, it was okay. This was the Moulin Rouge video. It was okay because he wasn't looking at me. But somehow being this, and I mean,
it was the this ends now shot, where we had to grab each other's collar and drag it. And it was something to do with the lens being used, wasn't it? It was such that we had to be like that.
Right. Well, and
nose to nose. I think our noses touched.
Yeah,
sometimes.
and at that point we were being directed by my friend Petros Ioannou, who is a film student, directs his own web series. So he knew what he was doing framing the shots, and I think he just had a sense that this, even though it's uncomfortably close, on film, this will look climactic and dramatic.
And it did.
He was right, but it was... I mean, I met you 7 minutes before we shot that. Not really, but it felt like that.
Yeah.
Before I can smell his nose and like see all of his pores, and same vice versa. And it's like, Jesus, there's something strange about. I mean,
it was.
Think about it's about any borderline stranger or person. Actually, that's not fair. It's not about stranger. Like that would be one strange thing, but someone you've interacted with a lot on the internet, and then one of your first experiences with them being a real person is, let's stand so close, right?
Let's touch faces.
You're going to breathe the breath I just breathed out. This is what's going to happen. I still
don't know to what extent he was just tricking us.
Just really enjoying it, like, but here's the thing. I think that I would have felt creepy at that level of knowing you, i.e., you only knew me as an internet person. We hadn't developed... there's an internet trust, and you have to have a deep internet trust for it to convert to real person trust. I don't know that we had a wealth of real person trust when we first met. So we
didn't know if we'd get along, really.
Right, like
we thought we probably would. Have we Skyped by then? We must have.
Yeah, but you get it, right? I'm not going to list off things, but there's all kinds of pitfalls when you see somebody and they're a person now and not just a, text on the internet or whatever. So... I think for me to come to your apartment would have been like a more tense, you don't know what to expect and I don't know what to expect. So it wasn't that it was out of the question, it was just that it didn't occur to us to make that leap last year. But I feel like seeing each other in person, hanging out, Skyping more this time around because Mario Land was almost exclusively via email. So like a couple lessons here. If you're writing anything with a beginning and a middle and an end, if you write a part of it and you can't change that part ever again once you've written it, that makes the rest very hard to write. And even though we have made changes to the confrontation, it stayed pretty solid because we assumed we were going to have to stick to that script because that's what we were shooting at Alcon. And then because that was one piece of footage we couldn't change or redo, we needed to keep that as it was.
Exactly.
We didn't make... Actually, they don't know this yet. I made changes to the Confrontation lyrics the night before we first shot that sequence because I realized I'd never updated that sequence to match the whole new concept. And it was pretty minor tweaks, but it just needed, in my mind, a bit of a brush up so that it wasn't just a remnant of that old Dave's the voice of reason and Brent's turning more and more evil by not liking the game. It wasn't a Grinch story anymore. It was an exaggerated, overblown fanboy argument, or rather, just internet nerd argument. So in conclusion, in our different ways, we both historically have cared a little bit more about making an interesting story that has jokes and hopefully portrays something. Like Mario Land just was about how sometimes two people feel differently about a game and it can be funny. And really, Ocarina ended up being about kind of a more overblown and aggressive version of how people fight on the internet, specifically.
Including ourselves, I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah, everybody's been on one side or the other of either you're the fanboy, or you're the anti-fanboy, or you're the, in your mind, the voice of reason, so are they.
Yeah.
And it gets to a ridiculous point, and you realize, well, maybe you don't, but ought to realize that it's kind of silly to take that too seriously.
When what it could be, you could be talking to your best friend, to someone who would in another life be a best friend, because here are two people who like the same thing.
Yeah.
And that there is no conflict between them.
Right.
So a conflict is manufactured over a small thing, and then they fight, but they both like the thing, so why are we fighting? And we do that so often on the internet among ourselves.
We do. And I think not only is a lot of time wasted, but also I think you actually can waste anger. You can waste hurt.
Yeah.
You can choose not to really, I mean, you can't always choose not to be hurt, but you can contextualize something, kind of zoom out and go, am I going to care about this in 24 hours? Am I really going to care about this in a month, 6 months, a year? And beyond that, in order to do a video about that and make you laugh, we've both slightly curated or exaggerated our real opinions. Dave has some negative opinions about Ocarina. They didn't show up in the video. I know Ocarina has huge merits, even though I don't personally deeply feel them. We let that part out because we wanted it to be the most fun story. And so if you're wondering, you know, why would we lie? I say that because I've been confronted in almost that, you know, turn of phrase at a Q&A panel. Well, just you know, just the accusation that I lied to my fans. And you have to understand that there are contexts in which I find it's okay to play a character of yourself. And one of the most obvious ones to me is when you've broken out into song anyway. Like, that for me need not be a time where you're only sticking to your strict biography. I hope that answers your question. I hope you've learned some things.
So now you know. That's how and why we made the Ocarina of Time with lyrics. Is that what it's going to be called? Ocarina of Time with lyrics?
It's interesting that you ask. I'm almost positive it'll be
I'm almost positive, but it's a better check.
Ocarina of Time with lyrics, probably feat, as in featuring Dave Ballmer,
yes.
I think.
Feating Dave Ballmer.
Feating.
Feating Demon Tomato Dave, maybe.
He'll let me know.
We'll figure this out.
Yeah.
Hello, let's go back a bit. So, that's how we did it. That's why we did it. That was what it was. And hopefully we have clarified various questions you may have had bubbling over in your brain after watching the Ocarina of Time with lyrics song.
And this video is on your channel, so if you have any extra questions, please ask them in the comments. Dave can't wait to answer
And I'll
them.
field all of them for the rest of my life. That's alright.
Yeah, so hope you enjoyed Ocarina of Time with lyrics.
As if they didn't. Imagine if everybody in the world hates it and it's a waste of time.
Hey, I've got 2 words for you. Metroid. Good night. Any thoughts beyond that? I hope Dave kept the part where you spilled the tea cakes.
It's going in. Yeah,
Okay,
don't worry.
And I guess thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Tomato Dave, Team Tomato Dave, www.youtube.com/Team Tomato Dave.
So thanks for joining us, and it's very late and we're going to bed now.
We've tried so many times to end it. Goodbye.